Why does the world outside your room feel dangerous, even when it's not? Why does silence between four walls feel like protection, while the noise of people feels like threat? You tell yourself you're just an introvert, that you like peace, quiet, solitude. But deep down, you know, it's not just peace you're chasing, it's safety, it's control, it's the only place left where the world can't reach you. Because out there, in the open, you're exposed, judged, compared, watched. Every smile feels fake, every handshake feels like a lie. And every time you tried to belong, you ended up feeling more alone. So you built walls, not of brick, but of habit. Walls of comfort, routine, and silence. Walls disguised as peace. You called it freedom. But it was really an escape. The truth is, your home became a fortress. A fortress built to protect you from the chaos of others, but also to protect you from yourself, from your own insecurities, your own failures, your own unseen potential. The more you stayed inside, the smaller your world became. And the smaller your world became, the safer you felt. Because safety is seductive. It whispers, "You're fine here. You don't need to fight anymore." And you believed it. But what if I told you, safety is just fear wearing a mask? That comfort is not peace, it's paralysis. And the walls you built to survive are the same walls now keeping you from truly living. Every fortress becomes a prison eventually, even the one built inside your mind. But before you can escape it, you must understand it. You must understand why the world outside feels like a battlefield, and why your mind decided to surrender before the war even began. This is not just about staying home. It's about the part of you that stopped trusting life itself. And tonight, you're going to meet that part face to face. You weren't always afraid of the world. Once, long before cities and screens, danger had a face. It had teeth. It had claws. It waited beyond the firelight. In those days, safety meant survival. To step outside the cave without caution was to die. And so, your ancestors learned something their bodies never forgot. That safety is not comfort. It's control. That being alone, being sheltered, meant staying alive. Those instincts didn't disappear with the wolves. They evolved. They put on new faces. Traffic, noise, judgment, social rejection. Now, the predators are invisible. They live inside notifications, expectations, and the constant gaze of others. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference. To it, every crowd feels like a hunt. Every confrontation feels like exposure. Every rejection feels like death. So when you stay home, when you retreat to silence, your brain whispers, "Good, you survived again." It rewards you with calm, dopamine, peace. That's not weakness, that's ancient programming. But here's the hidden danger. What once kept you alive now keeps you small. You've mistaken survival for strength, and comfort has become the new predator. The modern mind is overstimulated, overjudged, and underrested. Every conversation is a performance. Every social moment is a test. So you seek refuge, not because you're lazy or antisocial, but because your system has reached overload. You withdraw because your instincts are screaming, hide, regain control. Even great minds understood this. Nietzsche called solitude the school of the spirit. Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. They both knew to retreat is natural, but to stay hidden forever is fatal. You are not weak for needing space, but you become weak the moment you confuse isolation with power. You are not healing if your silence is just fear in disguise. You are only safe because you have stopped risking anything at all. This is the truth your mind doesn't want to hear. Your comfort is ancient fear wearing modern clothes. Every time you avoid the world, you feed that fear. You confirm it was right, that you can't handle life. But here's what separates the powerful from the powerless. They feel the same fear. They just don't let it decide for them. They step out, not because it's safe, but because they've learned that growth lives where safety ends. So, yes, there's a reason you feel safer at home. There's nothing broken about you. But if you stay there too long, the same instincts that once kept you alive will slowly start to bury you alive. Because the mind built to survive the wilderness was never meant to die inside four walls. You call it peace. You call it freedom. But look closely. It's not peace, it's control. At home, nothing moves without your permission. The lights, the music, the air, all obey you. No surprises, no chaos, no threat. And that's exactly why you love it. Because outside these walls, you have no power. The world is unpredictable, people are irrational, and reality rarely bends to your will. But inside, you are the ruler of your tiny kingdom. You mistake that control for safety. But in truth, it's just addiction in disguise. An addiction to predictability, an obsession with avoiding uncertainty. You've turned comfort into a religion. And every day you pray to the god of routine, hoping that if you obey it long enough, you'll never have to feel powerless again. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men desire power even over what is dead." He meant that control, for the fearful, is a substitute for courage. When you can't dominate the world, you start trying to dominate your surroundings, your space, your time, your emotions, and soon, that mastery becomes your identity. You no longer feel strong when you face the storm. You only feel strong when the storm never comes. But control has a price. Every inch of safety you gain costs you a piece of your vitality. You lose curiosity. You lose adaptability. You lose the sacred tension that keeps the human mind alive. The Stoics warned against this long before psychology gave it a name. They said, "Comfort without struggle is decay." That the man who seeks too much peace invites weakness into his soul. Seneca called it slow suicide. And maybe that's what you've been doing, dying slowly in the comfort of your own control. You feel safe because nothing challenges you anymore. But that's not safety. That's sedation. You've traded chaos for numbness, uncertainty for stagnation, freedom for familiarity. You say, "At least I'm calm." But calm without conquest is emptiness. Calm without purpose is just a prettier word for fear. Think about it. What would happen if you stepped outside the comfort you worship? If you faced something you couldn't manage, fix, or predict? Would you survive it, or would the illusion of your strength collapse? This is the tragedy of modern control. You're not avoiding pain, you're avoiding growth. You're not building peace, you're building walls. And behind those walls, the same mind that once built empires slowly forgets how to fight. So ask yourself, are you protecting yourself from chaos? Or are you protecting your weakness from being exposed? Because every comfort you cling to is just another chain disguised as calm. And every chain you refuse to break is proof that safety was never your goal. Control was. You think you fear the world, the noise, the people, the endless expectations. But the truth is, the world is only a mirror, and what you really fear is your own reflection. Look around you. Society is a storm, everyone performing, everyone pretending, everyone screaming for validation in a theater of distraction. The modern world has turned existence into a competition for attention. You're not crazy for wanting to step away. You're sane in an insane world. But there's something deeper happening beneath that sanity. It's not just the chaos outside that exhausts you, it's the chaos inside that gets exposed when you face it. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the dark, unaccepted parts of you that you hide, deny, and bury. Your anger, your envy, your shame. You think you left them behind. But the moment you walk outside, the world hands them back to you. You see your insecurities reflected in others' success, your suppressed rage in others' confidence, your guilt in others' freedom. So you run, not from them, but from the truth they awaken. Every crowd becomes unbearable. Every face feels like judgment. Every sound feels like intrusion. Because the world exposes the parts of you you've spent years trying to silence. So you retreat to your room, not because it's peaceful, but because it's quiet enough for the illusion of peace to exist. You say you love solitude, but sometimes solitude is just anesthesia for the self. The shadow doesn't disappear when you hide from it. It waits. It feeds on your denial. And the more you avoid the world, the larger it grows. Until one day, the silence you thought was protection becomes the echo chamber of your own unhealed mind. You start to hate the same walls that once felt safe, because safety without integration becomes suffocation. The world isn't attacking you, it's inviting you to face what you project onto it. The noise you hate out there, is the noise you never faced in here. The people who drain you mirror the emotions you suppress. The pressure that crushes you is the standard you secretly place on yourself. This is why you feel overwhelmed, because you've mistaken the battlefield. The enemy was never the crowd, the noise, or the world. The enemy was unmastered chaos within. You fear the world because it reveals what's unfinished inside you. But that revelation is your path to power. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The world doesn't overwhelm you because it's too loud. It overwhelms you because it's too honest. So, when you say, "I feel safer at home," what you really mean is, "I feel safer from myself." But you can't escape what lives in your reflection. You can only learn to face it. And when you do, the world that once terrified you will finally stop being your enemy. It will become your mirror, your teacher, your test. You've spent years believing that your withdrawal makes you weak, that your silence means you're broken. But maybe you're not retreating out of fear. Maybe you're being forged in solitude, because there's another side to isolation, one most people never reach. It's not escape, it's evolution. When solitude is chosen with purpose, it stops being a cage and becomes a crucible. Nietzsche called it climbing the lonely mountain. He said only those who dare to walk away from the herd can see the world clearly from above. The climb is painful, the air gets thin, but it's there, in the silence, that the mind finally becomes its own master. Most people use noise to avoid themselves. You use silence to confront yourself. While the world drowns in constant chatter, you learn to listen, not to others, but to the storm within. That is not weakness, that is discipline. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the act of becoming whole by meeting your own depths. He believed that solitude was not the absence of connection, but the birthplace of authenticity. It's where you stop living through imitation and begin shaping an identity forged from truth, not approval. If you've used solitude to understand your triggers, your addictions, your wounds, you've done what few men dare. You've walked through your personal underworld and returned with clarity others will never taste. Because the withdrawn mind, when conscious, is a weapon. It observes what others overlook. It learns before it acts. It builds inner order while the world tears itself apart. That's why those who truly master solitude are unreadable. They don't need attention to exist. They don't need noise to feel alive. They carry their world within them, and that kind of man or woman cannot be controlled. But there's a warning here. Solitude only transforms you if you face what it reveals. If you use it to grow stronger, wiser, colder. If not, it turns on you, because stillness without purpose becomes decay. So the question isn't whether you should withdraw. It's whether your withdrawal is shaping you, or slowly consuming you. When used right, solitude becomes sacred. It burns away illusions. It sharpens your instincts. It makes you sovereign. You're not escaping the world anymore. You're preparing to return to it, as someone it can no longer touch. Every true transformation demands return. Even the monk must leave the mountain. Even the warrior must step back into the fire. You weren't meant to stay hidden forever. Isolation was never the destination. It was the forge. Now comes the test, because solitude gives you clarity, but only the world can test your strength. Only chaos can reveal if the peace you've built is real. This is the part most never reach. They build their peace in silence, and then refuse to leave it. They confuse stillness with enlightenment and fear with wisdom. They become the comfortable hermits, safe, quiet, and irrelevant. But you are different. You've sharpened your mind in the dark. You've faced your demons in silence. You've rebuilt your armor piece by piece. And now, like every warrior before battle, you must return. Not to seek approval, but to test what you've become. In ancient Japan, samurai would enter periods of seclusion before returning to war. They didn't hide from the world. They purified themselves from it. They came back colder, focused, unreadable. They carried the kind of silence that made men lower their eyes. That's the silence you now hold, not the silence of fear, the silence of control. When you step outside again, don't rush to explain your absence. Let your energy speak for you. You don't owe the world your softness anymore. You owe it your discipline. Observe people, study their words, see through their masks. You will notice how fragile they've become, how addicted they are to noise, validation, and distraction. You will feel detached, even alien. Good. That's proof you've changed. This is the moment your isolation turns into power. You are not re-entering as the same person who left. You're returning as something rarer, a psychologically armored wanderer who moves through the chaos untouched. You've learned the law few ever grasp. You must retreat to build power, but power must return to prove itself. So go back into the noise, go back into the world, not to belong to it, but to move through it, unseen, carrying the silence of someone who no longer needs to hide. Now you see it, don't you? Every wall you built, every silence you chose, every hour you spent away from the world, none of it was a waste. It was preparation. You thought you were hiding from life, but you were actually studying it. You thought you were escaping fear, but you were learning its language, memorizing every tone, every deception, every lie it whispered in the dark. You feared the world because it was too big, too loud, too unpredictable. Now you see the truth. It was never the world you feared. It was your lack of order. It was your chaos that terrified you, not theirs. Safety was never the goal. Sovereignty was. And sovereignty doesn't come from locking the world out. It comes from mastering the storm within, until even chaos must kneel before your calm. When you understand your mind, the world can no longer control it. When you master your emotions, manipulation dies in your presence. When you no longer crave comfort, you become untouchable. That's what solitude was meant to teach you. Not how to hide, but how to hold your ground when everything around you burns. Your home is no longer a cage. It's a command center, a place where you rebuild your will, sharpen your perception, and return to battle with a mind that no longer fractures under pressure. You no longer fear the outside world, because you've already met the real enemy, yourself. And once you've conquered that, there's nothing left to fear. The world that once overwhelmed you is now your battlefield, and the solitude that once softened you has turned into armor. You've learned to use silence as a weapon. You've learned that withdrawal can be strategy. You've learned that comfort isn't peace, it's sedation. And you've burned that illusion to ash. You are no longer safe. You are sovereign. You move through the world detached, calm, aware, unreadable. No noise can shake you. No person can own you. No crowd can define you. This is not peace. This is power in its purest form, the kind that needs no permission, no applause, no witness. So remember, you built your walls to survive, but you broke them to rule. You found peace not by escaping the world, but by facing the parts of yourself the world awakened. You've crossed the threshold now. You're no longer the one who hides from life. You're the one who chooses when to face it. And when you do, it's the world that retreats. Now rise, not as who you were, but as who you've become. The walls around you haven't changed, but the person inside them has. You don't need to destroy your fortress. You need to walk out of it with discipline, not fear. Step beyond your threshold, not to join the crowd, but to test the strength you've built in silence. The world will test you again. It will provoke you, distract you, tempt you to collapse. But you won't, because your power doesn't come from escape anymore. It comes from understanding. You've seen how control becomes a cage, how comfort becomes decay, and how fear becomes the greatest teacher you'll ever meet. So, walk with quiet dominance. Observe more. Speak less. Carry your solitude with you, like a hidden blade only you know how to use. And remember this: your comfort will never protect you. It will only delay your evolution. But your awareness, that's your armor now. It cannot be stolen, corrupted, or broken. You are not someone who stays home. You are someone who learned to turn stillness into strategy, to turn fear into clarity, to turn isolation into power. You've left the fortress. Now, let the world feel your return. And if you're ready to keep sharpening that mind, if you're done being safe and ready to be sovereign, then stay. Because what comes next will turn your silence into strength.